I want you to try a little mental experiment with me for a second. Picture your phone,
Okay.
specifically the Notes app. Or maybe it's a hidden folder on your laptop, deep in the drive. Or, if you're old school, that actual physical notebook tucked under the mattress.
Ah, the one with the do not read vibe. The one that if you lost it, you would absolutely panic.
Exactly. The place where you dump all the raw data. The angry texts you didn't send because you knew they were, well, too mean. The confusion at 3 a.m. The list of reasons why you're stressed out of your mind.
The unfiltered stuff.
Right. Now imagine taking that content, the absolute rawest, ugliest, most unpolished version of your internal monologue, and printing it.
Oof. That is a visceral image.
And not just printing it, but binding it, putting a glossy cover on it, and handing it to strangers as a roadmap for their life.
That's a terrifying thought. That's the nightmare scenario for most people, isn't it? We curate our lives. We don't broadcast the breakdown.
We want the highlights reel, not the bloopers.
Yeah.
But that is precisely the mechanism we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into the story of author Johannes Wolfaardt and his book, Struggling Stains.
And we have some fascinating sources for this one.
We do. Specifically, an interview from Vista Hub's Path to Purpose, and we've also got the details on the upcoming February edition of Path to Purpose magazine, which is set to feature his full personal story.
And I'm really glad we're tackling this because, on the surface, it sounds like a standard biography. Man has hard time, man finds faith, man writes book. We've seen that movie.
Right.
But when you actually get into the source material, it's really a case study on data processing.
Data processing. That is a very clinical way to talk about human suffering. Usually we say healing or recovery.
I mean it in the literal sense, though. How do we as humans process the data of trauma or inner conflict, which is the exact phrase the source uses repeatedly, and convert it into something functional? Because Wolfaardt didn't just wake up one day with a self-help book fully formed in his head. He had to metabolize a lot of pain to get there.
So our mission today is to figure out that metabolism.
Yeah.
How do you go from inner conflict and searching to renewed purpose?
Mm-hmm.
What are the actual mechanics?
Because the source highlights some heavy hitters.
It does. Forgiveness, community, and a fundamental shift in worldview.
Right. So we're going to look at the stains, the pivot, and then the pathway.
Okay, let's start with the origin story, because this is the part that validates my Notes app nightmare analogy. The source is very clear. Struggling Stains didn't start as a manuscript.
No, not at all.
He wasn't sitting in a cabin with a pipe trying to be an author.
No. According to that Vista Hub interview, this whole thing started purely as a survival mechanism. He was writing diary entries.
Which I think makes this infinitely more relatable. I mean, I think most people have tried journaling at some point, usually when things are going wrong.
It does. And we really need to pause on that distinction, diary versus book. Because the psychological distance between those two things it's massive.
How so? Isn't a memoir just a published diary?
Not really, no. Think about the function. A diary is reactive. You are in the middle of the storm.
Right.
The source mentions Wolfaardt was going through years of inner conflict and searching. When you write in that state, you are writing for yourself to get the poison out. It's messy, it's nonlinear, it's often just full of blame or confusion.
It's a pressure valve.
That's it. It's the raw footage. No editing, no narrative arc.
Just, I am hurting right now.
Exactly. But a book is a product for others. To turn a diary into Struggling Stains, you have to stop looking at the pain as something happening to you and start looking at it as data that might help someone else.
You have to edit your own suffering into a lesson.
And that requires a level of detachment that is really, really hard to achieve.
It's interesting you use the word edit because the title itself, Struggling Stains, implies that he didn't edit out the messy parts.
And that's the hook of the whole project, isn't it?
I mean, stains. It's such a specific, almost unpleasant word. Usually if I have a stain on my shirt, I change the shirt.
You hide it.
If I have a stain on my reputation, I try to bury the story. We spend our whole lives trying to bleach the stains out.
Right. We want the polished Instagram feed. We want the success story. But Wolfaardt puts the stain right there on the cover. Based on how the source describes the book, the implication is that he is actively bringing those flaws.
Those moments of inner conflict.
Yes, out into the light. He isn't pretending the damage didn't happen.
Which suggests that the value isn't in the after picture. The value is actually in the during.
Precisely. If he had just written a book called How I Became Happy and Perfect, who would care?
Nobody.
We don't learn from perfection, we learn from the struggle to get there. The source suggests that the authentic material, the stuff that actually helps people, came from that diary phase. It came from the years where he just didn't know the answer.
So the argument here is that your raw, unpolished history is actually your most valuable asset.
If, and this is a big if you can process it correctly, you can't just dump your trauma on people and call it a book.
That's just venting.
It is. You have to find the insight within the injury.
Okay, so let's talk about that processing. Because Wolfaardt didn't stay in the diary phase forever. He didn't just write about being sad for 20 years. The source mentions a very specific pivot point.
Yes, it wasn't a gradual drift toward happiness. The source describes a life-changing encounter.
Now, I want to push on this a bit, because life-changing encounter is a phrase we hear a lot in these types of stories. It can mean anything.
Sure, meeting a mentor, winning the lottery, having a near-death experience.
Exactly. But the source gets specific here about the nature of this change.
It does. It says this encounter shifted his worldview and faith. And we should be clear, we're reporting on his experience here, but from an analytical perspective, a worldview shift is a massive cognitive event. It's structural.
So it's not just a mood swing. It's not just, I felt better on Tuesday.
No. A mood swing is temporary. You watch a comedy, you feel happy, you drop your ice cream, you feel sad. A worldview shift means the very lens through which you see reality has been swapped out.
You're processing every input differently.
And the source emphasizes that for Wolfaardt, the power of faith was the central pillar of this shift.
So if we stick with the computer analogy, it's not just opening a new app, it's updating the entire operating system.
That's the perfect way to look at it. The faith aspect he describes provided a new framework for understanding his inner conflict. Instead of the conflict just being random pain, it suddenly had a context within this new worldview.
And the source links that directly to his ability to move from brokenness to restoration.
It does.
The source also uses the phrase, deeply honest journey, which I appreciate, because sometimes faith is presented in these narratives as a kind of magic wand.
The spiritual bypass.
Yeah, like, I had an encounter and now I'm fine.
Right, just pray it away and pretend you weren't hurting.
But deeply honest implies that it wasn't pretty. It implies that even after the shift, there was a lot of work to do.
Well, that connects right back to the diary concept. You cannot have a deeply honest journey if you're performing for an audience. Honesty usually involves facing the things you're ashamed of.
And the source does imply that before this shift, there was a lot of searching.
He was looking for answers in different places, and this faith encounter provided the anchor he was missing. But an anchor just holds the ship. It doesn't fix the leaks. You still have to do the repair work.
Okay, that brings us to the mechanics. We have the raw material, the diary, the struggle, and we have the catalyst, this faith and worldview shift. But I'm interested in the how.
Right.
You can have a revelation on a Sunday and be right back to your old habit by Tuesday.
Yeah.
So how did he actually sustain this move toward restoration?
That is the so what question, isn't it? And the source highlights two very distinct mechanisms that Wolfaardt employs. And honestly, they're both incredibly difficult to actually do.
Hit me. What are they?
Forgiveness and community.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Because forgiveness is another one of those words that gets thrown around until it loses all meaning.
It can sound like a greeting card. Just forgive and forget.
Exactly.
And the source is careful here. It doesn't say forget. It implies a process. It says he explores how choosing forgiveness can bring peace and restoration.
Choosing being the operative word there.
Huge distinction. Forgiveness isn't a feeling. If you wait until you feel like forgiving the person who caused your inner conflict, and this is often harder, forgiving yourself for the stains,
You'll wait forever.
you will wait forever. The source frames it as an active choice, a decision.
But why is that a mechanism for healing? I mean, practically speaking, why not just get justice?
Right?
Or get even? Or just cut the person off and stay angry?
Well, think about inner conflict, which is where Wolfaardt started. What does that usually look like physically and mentally? It's resentment.
It's replaying the argument in your head 1,000 times. It's a loop.
It's the open tab in your brain that drains all the battery. You're trying to work, but 40% of your RAM is used up being mad at something that happened 10 years ago.
That's a great way to put it.
And in this context, forgiveness is the forced quit on that application. You aren't saying what happened was okay. You aren't saying the behavior was acceptable. You are choosing to stop letting it run your operating system.
So the source suggests that for Wolfaardt, this was the direct link to peace.
It had to be. You can't turn a diary of pain into a book of purpose if you are still holding on to the bitterness that wrote the diary in the first place.
You have to release the debt to write this story.
That's a powerful way to put it. As long as you are trying to collect that debt, trying to balance the scales, you are stuck in the past. Wolfaart's move to restoration required him to let go of the need for the past to be different.
That makes sense. But then there's the second mechanism, community. And honestly, this one seems a little counterintuitive to me, especially with the book's title.
Why does it feel counterintuitive?
Well, if I have stains, if I have these deep flaws and brokenness that I'm writing about in my secret diary, my first instinct is to hide.
Isolate.
Yeah, I don't want people to see the stains. I want to bunker. I want to heal in private and then come out when I look good again.
And that is the paradox of trauma. Shame tells you to isolate. It tells you if they knew the real you, they wouldn't like you. It tells you to protect the diary at all costs.
But the source explicitly mentions the importance of community and support in his recovery.
So you can't white-knuckle your way to purpose. Apparently not. Think about the image we started with, the diary. That is a solo activity, total isolation, just you and your demons.
Right.
But the move toward purpose, that required other people. The source implies that letting others in was just as important as letting the anger go. You need mirrors, you need people to see the stains and accept you anyway.
That's what breaks the shame cycle.
It has to be.
It's almost like the diary was the me phase, and the healing was the US phase.
Yes. And looking at the interview notes, it seems this is where the faith aspect bridges into the community aspect. It's not just believing in God in a vacuum, it's participating in a community that shares that worldview. It provides a safety net where you can show the stains and not be rejected.
Or at least that's the ideal.
That's the ideal. But finding a place where you can be stained and safe is not easy.
Extremely rare. But the source suggests it was necessary for him. He couldn't do it alone.
Right.
So we've got the origin, the private diary, the pivot, the faith encounter, and the mechanics forgiveness and community. Now, I want to look at the result. Why did he actually write this book?
Because a lot of people heal and then just move on with their lives.
Exactly. They don't publish the roadmap.
Well, the source gives us a little background on his motivation. It describes the book as a reminder, specifically a reminder that difficult seasons are not dead ends.
I love that idea, that a bad chapter isn't the end of the book. But is there more to it than just hang in there?
I think so. The source uses this phrase, pathway to hope and renewed purpose. I want to double-click on that word, pathway.
Unpack that for me.
Usually we view brokenness or trauma or failure as an obstacle. It's a giant boulder in the road. We think, I need to climb over this or go around this so I can get back to my real life.
We think, once I get past this divorce, or once I get over this addiction, or once I stop feeling this grief, then I can start living again.
But Wolfaardt, based on this interview, is arguing that the brokenness is the pathway. It isn't the boulder blocking the road. It is the road itself.
Wow. That is a radical shift in perspective.
Yeah.
So the stains are the paving stones.
Exactly. Without the struggle, without those years of inner conflict and the searching, the specific destination of renewed purpose he has reached wouldn't even exist. The difficult season was a necessary prerequisite for the wisdom he has now.
It changes how you look at your own bad days, doesn't it? Instead of just gritting your teeth and enduring them, you have to ask, okay, where is this path leading?
What is this teaching me that I couldn't learn any other way? It adds meaning to the suffering, and psychologically, that is what humans are always desperate for. We can endure almost any how if we have a why.
And Wolfaardt's book seems to be his attempt to provide that why structure for his readers. He's saying, look, I took this path of pain and it led here. Yours can too.
It's the difference between pointless pain and growing pain.
Huge difference. One destroys you, the other builds you. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to manage expectations here. We are doing a deep dive into a summary.
Right. We're analyzing the report on the interview.
We've talked about stains and struggles in the abstract.
Exactly. We're dealing with the high-level concepts today, the architecture of his journey. We haven't detailed the specific events of his life because the source material we have right now focuses on the themes.
But if you are listening to this and you want the granular details, the specific who, what, when, the actual names of the stains, where do we go for that?
Well, the source indicates that the full personal interview with Johannes Wolfaardt and VistaHub is going to be in the February edition of Path to Purpose magazine.
Okay, so that's where the raw stories live.
Correct. That is where you'll likely find the specific narratives behind the concepts we discussed today. That's where the diary entries essentially get revealed.
So let's bring this all together. We've looked at the trajectory of Johannes Wolfaardt. We've seen the transition from private isolation to public service.
We discussed that pivotal encounter that shifted his worldview and the central role his faith played in reorienting his life from searching to purpose.
We broke down the hard mechanics, choosing forgiveness as a tool to find peace, and the absolute necessity of community to break out of that shame cycle.
And finally, the reframing of brokenness not as a failure but as a pathway.
It's a universal pattern, isn't it?
Hmm.
I mean, Wolfhardt's story is unique to him, his specific faith, his specific struggles. But the pattern of data to insight is something we all have to do.
It is the fundamental human algorithm. We take the raw data of our experience, which is often painful and confusing, and if we are willing to do the work, we process it into wisdom.
Wolfhard just happened to bind his wisdom into a book called Struggling Stains.
It makes you think about your own processing speed. Are you still stuck in the data collection phase, just feeling the pain, writing in the diary? Or are you moving toward insight?
That is the question. And it's not an easy one. Moving from data to insight takes real courage.
It does.
And that leads me to the thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. We talked a lot about the transition from a private diary to a public guide, the move from me to us.
Which is the ultimate goal of the path to purpose.
Exactly. So here's my challenge for you to mull over as you go about your day. Go back to that mental box we started with. The one with your current stress, your current struggle, the thing keeping you up at night right now.
The current stain.
Right. If you viewed those notes not as a list of complaints, but as research for a guide you're going to hand to someone else in 10 years, someone who's going through the exact same thing, what would the chapter title be?
That's good. Would you see it as just a mistake to be erased?
Or would you be able to see the pathway? Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.